Dude, this Demon Hunter card is so freaking cool. We got another insane legendary in this video to talk about as well. I'm normally not big on Demon Hunter cards, but some of these are pretty sick. And I think my review's on time today, maybe, I think. But you got to deal with this hair. That's the trade-off. So this is CCG. Collectible card game. Get it? CCG. A 4-mana 4/3 for Demon Hunter. Death Rattle, get 3 random first edition Demon Hunter cards in mint condition. So this is actually a card collecting Hearthstone card. Now, what is a first edition Demon Hunter card? Well, it's these. It's a pool of the kind of broken day one release Demon Hunter stuff. You guys, if you played in that era, will remember just how insane Demon Hunter was on day one. I think still the most broken deck ever. We were trending to a point where it had like a 65% win rate and everything else was like sub 40%. It got nerfed after a single day, which is unheard of. And this pool of cards is what made up much of that strength. These are the kind of nerfed Demon Hunter cards back in their original state. So 5 mana Skull of Gul'dan, 3 mana Altruist, which sounds insane. Twin Slice at 0. Imprisoned Antian and Priestess of Fury, these big scary demons. Even Glaive Bound Adept here. So you're gonna get 3 of these. Basically, there's 10 in the bag. CCG is gonna grab 3 and give you 3 Demon Hunter cards. So number 1, just a lot of value generation, right? A 4-drop that's giving you 3 pretty good cards is nice. That's just 3 extra resources in hand. Obviously a little bit of a downturn on CCG itself, but otherwise, you know, getting some good stuff back. Now, the concern I have for this is that, yes, number 1, these cards are all really good, and most of them are good in a vacuum. In other words, you don't really have to like play these together or anything. Warglaze is an odd. It's just good. An Altruist is just good, and a big Imprisoned Antian, you can just play that, and it's fine. It's good. They're all pretty good, but I will say they're not like crazy broken. Number 1, Hearthstone has just advanced by a few years. That was 2020 that Demon Hunter came out. That was right in the start of the pandemic. We're basically 4+ years on. The game has advanced. These aren't quite as broken as they used to be. Power levels have scaled. And then number 2, you don't have that like critical mass of them because you're only getting 3. You're not able to, say, for instance, build an entire deck that's around using Altruist the Outcast. Altruist and Twin Slice together is what was so crazy powerful. If you only get one or the other, maybe both still good cards, but not like crazy broken cards. And, the kind of top row here in particular, I put the sort of standouts, to me at least, on the top row. Those are all really, really good. Stuff below that maybe hasn't aged quite as scarily, in my opinion. And even like Twin Slice, again, it just needs help sometimes to feel busted and broken. So if you get like, Ultra Skull Twin Slice, maybe you're in a scary spot. That might actually be crazy, right? But if you don't get Altruist and you get a Twin Slice, does it really go that far? That's going to be the issue. Mixing and matching. It's just like, okay, I got 3 good cards, but not 3 hyper synergistic cards, not 3 cards that maybe feel as broken as they did at launch. So in some ways, cool little value card. I think it's probably actually still quite playable. Just get some good stuff. There are going to be decks that are still able to use Twin Slice effectively with like Blind Eye Sharpshooter. Altruist is probably a good card no matter what. Skull of Gul'dan's a good card no matter what. So you'll likely get 1 or 2 things that just feel like good pieces, especially a lot of like mid-game stuff to play after turn 4 CCG. You're getting some good 5-drops and so on to follow that up. And then the occasional crazy home run and the occasional, it's like, well, this hand didn't really do much. I got like Battle Fiend, Eye Beam, and Aldraki Warblades, which are all fine cards, but I'm not over the moon. I would have rather maybe had a good 4-drop than get these. So that mixed bag does make CCG kind of a mixed bag sort of card. I think, Reno decks will probably value this. Some Demon Hunters that just have a little extra space here and there, especially in a 4-set meta, will value this. As we get further along, though, as this Demon Hunter gets access to more and more cards within a given meta, I don't know if this will hold up. I don't know if this makes the cut. You're just getting too much randomness introduced, and these cards just don't quite compete at the same level they used to. So I do think this one will kind of fall off over time a little bit, but a really fun, cool idea for a card. Love this freaking design with these first edition cards. That is good stuff. So moving on to Demon Hunter's next legendary here, it's Mag. So moving on to Demon Hunter's next legendary here, it's Magtheridon Unreleased. This is an 8 mana 12/12 mech and demon. It's dormant for 2 turns, and while dormant, it will deal 3 damage to all enemies at the end of your turn. So sometimes this dormant for 2 turns sort of stuff, like I got a big giant guy and he's dormant and I'm going to get him out eventually, that often has not worked very well. I mean, even recently in Warrior, we just saw that with their big, like, 16/16 guy. Slagmaw the Slumbering. I totally knew that name. I did not have to pause to go pull that up to see its name, right? We know that these like big delayed stats aren't necessarily good on their own. Like the stats aren't enough of a payoff basically, but this has this insane secondary payoff. While dormant, you're getting this sick AoE that is basically going to give you a board wipe sometimes, just, you know, tidying up your opponent's board if they're an aggro deck in particular, just wiping stuff out. It also gives you face damage. It actually hits all enemies. So this is like kind of 6 face damage while dormant and a couple board clears that might be hard sometimes for your opponent to play into as well, which is kind of nice. And I'll go ahead and tease some of the other cards we're going to get here as well. Like there's ways to potentially reduce the cost of this. Like here is some cost reduction, which could get it down even sooner. And there's ways to actually make it go dormant for even longer. Like you could actually make this go dormant again. There's also like Barrel Brim, the sheriff from Badlands that doesn't get played much. Both of those could actually make Magtheridon go re-dormant and reactivate this dormant effect, just giving this pervasive AoE. It's like the opponent can't escape. It's just turn after turn of dealing 3 damage to enemies, which you'd probably often value more than the 12/12 body on board, since the 12/12 here doesn't have like rush or taunt or anything. It's going to be kind of just sit and duck there. So there might be some ways to turn this into this like engine of sorts that just keeps damaging the opponent's board and face turn after turn. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mograine for Death Knight here. You know, he's dealing 3 to the opponent at the end of the turn after turn after turn. Magtheridon, you know, needs more help to do that, but it's kind of the same thing, but it's also impacting the opponent's board as well, which does really help for a card like this. So, I mean, look, I don't know that this still feels great at 8 sometimes. If that 3 damage is not enough to wipe out your opponent's board, this still feels like a really big investment that's kind of risky. It's like, oh man, they got like 3 5/5s on board. Can I really play Magtheridon? I'm going to take 15 if I play this. It doesn't even wipe out the board this turn. You know, if you have enough stabilization and recovery after that, like, yes, this starts to pay more dividends, but do you really want to be investing 4 or 5 cards into this one thing that's pretty cool but maybe not necessarily game winning? That's going to be tough. I think you have to have some kind of demon cheat, cost discount sort of play to make this get down a little bit sooner, so that AoE is more likely to keep up with a given board state. But pretty cool design. I like that this is big guy that's dormant, but with that upside, with some extra playability there, some different angles to approach this from, makes it a lot cooler, and I think definitely increases the playability potentially too. So let's go ahead and talk about Umpire's Grasp. This is a 3 mana 3/2 with Death Rattle, draw a demon, and reduce its cost by 2. And I just like this card. It just feels good and honest. A 3/2 weapon for 3 has been a classic recipe that I think that still holds up pretty well. There's just so many little 3/3s and stuff to hit. And then you've got card draw baked into this. You got tutor baked into this. We got some big demon payoff we've already seen baked into this. And the cost reduction just helps even further cheat out some big stuff. So this just does a lot of good things. Solid stats, card draw, and cost reduction. 3 really, really valuable assets to have in a card. And I think that makes this look really pretty good. Moving on to red card, 1 mana spell here, make a minion go dormant for 2 turns. So this make stuff go dormant. We've seen this so many different times. There's probably been 4 or 5 cards now that try to do this, using this as like soft removal or delay, starting I think probably with Maiev way back when in Ashes of Outland. Speaking of first edition Outland cards there. And it's just never been as good as we wanted it to be. I mean, there's a Druid card as well, that Jail card. There's Sheriff Barrel Brim now in Badlands, which hasn't been good. And you know, using this as an offensive card, or I guess let's say like a defensive card, to remove your opponent's stuff, to delay it for a couple turns, just hasn't felt worth it. Like, you got to deal with it eventually. It is nice that this is only 1 mana, so that's much cheaper, more flexible, could be weaved into other Demon Hunter turns. Like, that helps. You know, it's cheaper than Maiev or whatever. You don't care about the body on Maiev, so that's kind of cool. The question then becomes, though, can you use this, let's say, offensively, where you're, you know, making your Magtheridon go dormant so that you're getting that extra AoE? Could you use this on a Blind Eye Sharpshooter so that you can kind of invest the mana now, and then once your Blind Eye Sharpshooter wakes up, it's ready to go, you got a full turn where your Sharpshooter was sort of protected to invest that mana ahead of time for your combo pop-off later. We've also seen people try that sort of stuff with Maiev. Never really worked, but this is so much cheaper, it might actually be easier to do that in some cases. So does that kind of mix in utility where maybe you can use this on your own stuff successfully, and maybe you can use this on your opponent's stuff successfully, help this get there when otherwise this has not really been something that worked very well? It has a better chance, but I still don't think it's a great one. Moving on here to Ball Hog. This is a 4-mana 3/3 Quillbore. Of course, a great name here. Lifesteal, Battle Cry, and Death Rattle deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy. And I think that makes this card pretty interesting, right? This is very often going to be like a 4-mana 3/3 that you play down, and it just kills your opponent's 2/2 or 3/3 or whatever on board, and it gets you a little bit of health back if you fell behind early. So kind of a mid-game on-board swing is nice. And then it also becomes annoying to deal with on board if your opponent wants to play more stuff down. The Ball Hog probably becomes a great sort of trading threat where it trades in and cleans something off again with the second half, the Death Rattle here, that deals 3 damage. And on occasion, this can also go face too, which of course, you know, I don't think Demon Hunter, anybody's really ever going to hate the option to go face from time to time as well. So this might even have some utility later in the game when it feels like you've already stabilized. Sometimes these cards get a little iffy, but between the lifesteal and the extra little bonus chance at lethality, that's cool for this card. I think that helps this one a lot, and it feels like it's good in 2 different places, which makes it a solid option. Moving on to the Lesser Opal Spellstone. This is a 2-mana spell. Draws you 1 card at a base, then you attack with your hero 2 times to upgrade. Of course, you get the Opal that draws 2 and the Greater Opal that draws 3. Yes, the Greater Opal Spellstone is pretty cool. 2 mana, draw 3. I like that. What I don't like are the first 2 steps, and what I don't like are feeling like I have to attack to make my card draw feel good. I think, you know, assuming this is in your opening hand and you attack on turn 1, which happens very often in Demon Hunter anyway, you're probably not mad about Opal Spellstone on 2. It's just been 2 mana to draw 2. That's probably feeling okay. But if you really want to get the biggest payoff for this, you're waiting until a little bit later. It's off curve already, like attack on turn 2. Greater Opal Spellstone on 3 feels weird, so you're kind of just sitting around doing other things, which is fine. Often you don't really need card draw early in the game. You usually have things to do, choices that you can make. Just hero powering is maybe not the end of the world anyway. But the real challenge for this then becomes later in the game. Once you top deck this, it becomes a very sad card to top deck late in the game, which is when you often need your card draw the most. Suddenly you have the Opal Spellstone, the Lesser Opal Spellstone, you're drawing 1. It's like, oh man, I gotta attack to kick off my card draw. I've already committed 3 mana. Like, it's turn 7, half my mana is gone already, right? And that's just to get the Opal Spellstone, which isn't even good. So this is one of those that becomes really draw dependent. Like, you hit this early, it might feel like pretty organic, pretty good payoff. You hit it late, it feels like a disaster. So then it just becomes a question, does Demon Hunter have access to other better card draw that is not quite as conditional, that doesn't need as much work? Because if so, I think they'll probably go for the more reliable card draw output as opposed to this, which does require that additional support and additional help. So moving on to Workshop Mishap here. 4-mana Fel spell, deal 5 damage to a minion. Excess damages both neighbors and outcasts, gain life steals. A lot going on here. This has those combustion vibes. The old mage card with the excess damage, and then it's got this life steal upside as well. It is a little bigger than combustion, both to start and from a mana cost standpoint. Combustion was a cool card. There are definitely board states where this will feel neat and the lifesteal will feel cool. I think, though, ultimately something about this just feels fine. It doesn't feel like the numbers are pushed. I can imagine a lot of scenarios where this actually feels awkward. I feel like I'm going to want the lifesteal in this card most of the time, so when it's not there, I'm going to feel pretty sad about it. So basically, this card has a bunch of kind of conditionality built in. How good is the board state? Do I have the lifesteal? You know, and for the 4 mana cost, I worry that conditionality is going to be too much to overcome too often. Like the board states where this really sings are going to be, you know, few and far between. Like 1 in 10 times this is going to feel amazing, and then like 8 out of 10 times it's going to feel just okay. And that may not be enough for a card these days, particularly one that doesn't really have any other synergies or, you know, play towards a more traditional Demon Hunter game plan. So it's just okay, but okay maybe isn't good enough. Moving on to Spirit of the Team. This card, of course, wants to be called Team Spirit, but it's harkening back to the Spirit of the Blank cards we had from Rosticon's Rumble, so they did their best on this one. 2 mana, 0/3 undead, stealth for 1 turn, and your hero has +2 attack on your turn. This again is okay, I think. You know, 2 attack on turn 2 is actually pretty okay. Sometimes you can use that to clean up a minion, which is nice. A little bit of bonus chip damage, never hurt anybody. And then presumably this is alive into the next turn as well. So you're kind of getting 2 turns of +2 attack, which I think is actually worth it for 2 mana. And even then the opponent still has to deal with the Spirit of the Team. It's like, I gotta kill this 0/3, which, you know, might interrupt one of their minion attacks, buy you a little bit of health as well. So does this become basically sort of a 7-point health swing for 2 mana? Kind of a deal 4, save 3. Probably this is what that looks like a lot of the time. And sometimes, of course, that +2 and +2 on the future turn as well is just going to help you clean up boards. So you can use this a bit more defensively too, which is actually pretty okay, I think. That said, again, with a card like this one, it becomes about synergy and need. Of course, you can concoct plenty of game states where this feels fine, but is it good enough that they're willing to run this? Do you have to include this card? Is this driving you towards a game plan? Damage is sometimes a game plan, sure, and a critical mass of damage is important to hit. So maybe that's okay. But again, I could see this card getting cut pretty freely for stuff that's just more immediately aggressive. Things that, you know, if they're left behind, start hitting face, contribute to a future game plan, draw you cards, have some other keyword or whatever that's playing instead of just hero attack on this one, which is, again, pretty fine, but maybe just not directed enough, basically, to make the cut. Moving on to Window Shopper, a 5 mana 6/5 demon. Miniaturize and Battlecry, discover a demon, set its stats and cost to this minions. So kind of normalizing some stats and cost here. You can get a big demon that's like, you know, you're getting a cool effect. For cheaper, you got your Magtheridon that only costs 5, basically. You still get that cool dormant. Or if you got something small, you know, you can get yourself a nice medium-sized threat to help fill in curves or whatever. Like play this on turn 5, and then on turn 6, you can play the 5-cost demon that you have now, plus the 1-cost mini version of Window Shopper. And then Window Shopper, you know, you're probably going to want to take big things very often to cheat positive effects into play very affordably for 1 mana. So basically getting a 1 mana Magtheridon, that dormant effect becomes pretty insane suddenly because you're getting, you know, 3 damage per turn for only 1 mana, which is nice. I think my biggest hesitation with this card is really just that 5 mana upfront cost. It's pretty expensive to just play a 6/5 and not really get anything super reliable or consistent out of it. I do like that this fills a curve a little bit. Could maybe see that in a Reno deck that just needs to stuff 30 cards in a 1-set meta. That makes sense. Beyond that, though, I don't know, man. Most decks, this is going to feel pretty prohibitively expensive to just slam a 6/5 and then get something that's maybe good and maybe not, because, you know, there are going to be some hits in the demon pool, I'm sure, but there are plenty of others that just aren't going to be good, particularly when you talk about like neutral demons, because, you know, Discover just has so much neutral stuff these days. There might be some iffiness there where you just get low rolls and then it just didn't feel worth it. So then finally here we have Blind Box, and similar concern for this one. A 2 mana spell, get 2 random demons or outcast, discover them instead. So random demons in particular, man, that's just a real mixed bag. You're gonna feel like when you open blind boxes in real life and you get the thing you just didn't want so often. So great flavor, home run flavor, but I think you'll be disappointed with your results way too much. Now, when this is outcasted, discovering is interesting because 2 random demons opens you up to other classes. When they're random, you can get stuff from like Warlock or whatever, right? Which has a bunch of demons, which is kind of cool. But when you say discover them instead, I wonder if that means you're going to change the choice of the card. Like 2 random demons is just all demons in the pool. When you say discover them, that would normally limit you to demon hunter and neutral cards, because that's how discover works. It doesn't pull from other classes. But I wonder if what they really mean is it's still going to be the same pool of all demons, and you're just going to pick from the 3 that it chose, you know, or it chooses 3 and you get to pick from those 3, or if you're actually going to follow the rules of discover. My instinct tells me they probably still want it to be the pool of all demons, so they'll just grab you like 3 random ones, a warlock one, a demon hunter, a neutral, whatever, you know, whatever mix. It doesn't have to be those distinctly, whatever mix of cards, and then you'll pick one. So you'll be able to pick a warlock card that normally wouldn't show up in a discover, is my instinct, but I don't know. We'll see how that works. Either way, I don't really think the discover aspect saves this necessarily. It definitely improves the quality of your results by a huge margin on average, but it's still how are you going to use those 2 random demons for a deck game plan? Does that really advance a win condition very well? I don't think the answer to that is usually yes. So probably, again, a card that can kind of get left out. So that said, let's do some quick reviews. Sasiji is a 3-star card. Magtheridon Unreleased is a 4-star card. Umpire's Grasp is a 4-star card. Red Card is a 3-star card. Ballhog is a 4-star card. Lesser Opal Spellstone is a 3-star card. Workshop Mishap is a 2-star card. Spirit of the Team is a 3-star card. Window Shopper is a 2-star card. Blind Box is a 2-star card. And there you go. That's the Demon Hunter set. I love the design of this card so much, man. So cool. The art's pretty neat too, showing all the cards and stuff. So really fun how kind of self-referential we're getting and so on in this set. It's pretty neat to see all this nostalgia brought back to life. So curious to your thoughts on these cards, good, bad, so on. Share those down below. Thanks so much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.